Hello, welcome to another video in our Dumaguete IELTS video series. My name is Trevor Gordon and I am the owner, site controller, whatever word you want to use, for the school and the website. And I'm also, of course, a teacher. So today's video is about general grammar tips regarding Tagalog. When I say Tagalog, what I mean is using expressions learnt in the Philippines when learning English that need to be addressed. And you'll understand what I mean as we go through the video. Now, today's topic. I've given you a couple of pictures here which kind of outline things that I'm going to talk about. Open and close, to be married, to with someone, and other prepositional things. And we're also going to look at several other areas where, for IELTS, these things need to be correct. For everyday speaking, not so important, but for IELTS, they are very important. Okay. So, these errors, I call them taught in school errors because as a teacher, I hear them all the time. So that leads me to believe that they're taught in schools and they're learned by students, by high school students, etc. So I call them taught in school errors. And they're also perpetuated in media and print. When I read things, when I see things on television, these same expressions are being used. So it's something that is obviously people pick up on things that they hear, that they learn, and they don't know whether they're correct or not. They assume that they're correct. So let's begin anyway. At the beginning of the video, you can see the two images. So if you reread this, if you rewatch this video, you'll see the front again, the front introduction pictures. So that's just talking about those. So the first thing I need to mention is that there are many forms of English across many nationalities, and they all have their own quirks, words, expressions. Now, this is fine in most situations, but for IELTS or any other language exam, we cannot use these things in our English. The examiners of exams marked correct English only, not your version of the language. Okay, so this is for exams only. It's very important. Please bear this in mind as we work through the video. Just as I often say to my students, the I am shy excuse, which will not help you in the speaking exam, the this is how we say it in the Philippines excuse will not work either. It's either wrong or it's right. Yes? So remember those two things and make sure that you get it right. Okay, the first thing, open and close. Certain things can be opened and closed, but not everything. I often hear, open the light, open the computer, open the aircon, open the TV, and of course, close all those things. Now, all of these things are electrical in nature, so they should be, or they have to be, switched on, switched off, turned on, turned off. Also, things which have motors or engines, because what we do is we switch on and switch off the engine or the motor that actually runs the thing. Like a car, for example, you don't turn on the car, you turn on the ignition, which starts the engine. So turn on, switch on, turn off, switch off. The ignition to a car, motorbike, truck. Things in the home, TV, washing machine, the ref, the cooker, kettle. Make sure you use the right terminology in the exam. In your everyday communication, this is not important unless you're speaking to a native, like myself, who may be confused. I am no longer confused because I've lived in the Philippines for a long time. But for the IELTS exam, it could mean the difference between a 6 and a 6.5 for writing, which now you need a 6.5 and not a 7. And also the difference between a 6.5 and a 7 for speaking. So these little things can make the difference. If you make enough mistakes, it could bring your score down. So this is why these things are important to be clear and careful about. Okay, we open and close many different things, things which are non-electrical, non-mechanical, or have interiors. Most often it's containers. Those containers could be bags, boxes, rooms, packages, cupboards, cabinets. There are many more things. We can also use it with water feeds or water dispensers. Open the faucet or tap, as we say in England, which also you can turn on the tap, turn off the tap, open the tap, close the tap. It's one of those things where you can use both. And here we have some example sentences that you can look at. Practice the expressions. If you're one of these people who does say open and close, practice saying switch on, switch off, just to make you used to saying it. Okay, let's move on. The second thing I hear often is with certain prepositions. So I'll just go through them and explain. To be angry with someone, not to. I'm very angry with my girlfriend for forgetting my birthday. The boss was very angry with his assistant because she forgot to schedule an important meeting for him. To be good or bad, that should say bad, sorry. To be good or bad at something. Other adjectives can be used, but we don't say good in, bad in. I'm good at football. I've played it since I was a child. I'm not good at maths or singing. Neither of them seem to like me. When we say this, it's a kind of a joke. It means whatever I do, I can't do them. So those two things obviously don't like me, so they won't let me be good at them. She's terrible at public speaking because she gets so nervous. They are bad at organizing their lives. They never seem to know what's going on. The all too common fill out, fill in, not fill up. Please fill in the application form and return it in the post. You need to fill in your email and password to log in. Thank you, sir. I need you to fill out the check-in form in a hotel. Please fill out your name and address and include a contact number, a number where we can contact you. Again, in English, fill in, fill out. Why we have to, I cannot explain that to you, but we do have to. But we never say up, never. And another one which I commonly hear is after the future. No, it is in the future. I'll explain why in a minute. There's a few examples. In a moment, in a few minutes, in 3 weeks, in 6 months, in a short while, in the long term, which talks about years, decades even. Okay. Now, all of those are references to the future. We cannot say after the future simply because the future has no end. We can only use after to talk about something which happens after another thing has finished. So, for example, after I get home, I'm going to take a shower. So I have to get home first, and that getting home finishes. Then I take a shower. So you cannot say after the future when the future does not end. Yes? So in, always use in. Result in, resulting in, not resulting to. This is something I see a lot in the newspapers. In fact, I see this almost every day in the newspapers and occasionally on TV when they're reporting certain stories. Result in, they go together, not to. The traffic accident this morning resulted in the deaths of two young men. Video footage of the break-in resulted in the capture of the thieves. The jury could not decide if the defendant had committed the crime, which resulted in a hung jury. The already congested parkway was the scene of a traffic incident this morning, resulting in more delays for drivers. Okay, all of these previous prepositions, if used in their incorrect form, will give you a lower score because each instance will be marked as a basic grammar error. So every time you make a mistake, it will accumulate, or they will accumulate. The more and more you make, the more it will bring down your score. Now we have the use of will. Will is an indicator of the future, and it's also a modal verb. Modal verb is a verb that's usually used with a main verb, but it has a specific meaning. In this case, will indicates future. That's its meaning. So we have it together here with some main verbs in red, the modal verb in green. I will go, I will pay, will help. So these are the main verbs. Will is just used to indicate that these things are going to happen in the future. Will is also used with time clause, and this is where the biggest mistakes are made. Time clauses are expressions which talk about time order, not actual time. They're used to talk about things which happen at the same time, before or after another action, shortly or immediately after another action, when a change of action happens. So we're talking about time order or time sequencing, not days, months, years, hours, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, that kind of thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the order of time. Okay, the one major rule about time clauses is that they do not use will. You should never use will in a time clause, which this is one of the things I hear a lot because in Tagalog, from my knowledge, there is only one way to say, talk about the future, and that's using will. So it's used for everything. Now, in English, there are many ways to talk about the future. Will is just one of them. In fact, there are 7 ways to talk about the future, which can be confusing. Will is just a small part of that, so we use it in a specific way. Okay, so a time clause, going back, a time clause is the subject, the verb, and time word. Time word is often at the front. I've just said here the order can change, but these are the 3 elements you need for a time clause. So we have our time words: before, after, as soon as, when, until, while. They're the most common. They're mainly used at the beginning of a sentence. So, looking at the examples here, you can see that will is used, but not in the time clause section. The time clause is visible by the coded colors. So when we use certain expressions, we break them down into different clauses. And this is how we have to use will, for example. So before I leave the office, I will finish the report. So I'm saying that this will be done before this happens. But you cannot say before I will leave the office. That is wrong. That's why time clauses never have will in it. Will can go into another clause that follows it, or sometimes actually comes before it. After I get home, clause, I will watch TV for a while. Now here we have a question. Will you be there when I arrive? Not will you be there when I will arrive. We will wait until you get there. Again, the will is here, the clause is here. We cannot include will in this clause. Here, 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 here. Will cannot be in this clause. You'll see an example in a second. She will get some sleep as soon as she knows you have arrived safely. I will cook dinner while the guests are chatting. Now, as I said, these indicate sequence. While indicates at the same time. So while I'm cooking dinner and they are chatting, these things are happening together. She will get some sleep as soon as she knows. This means immediately after something happens, something else will happen. She will go to sleep immediately after she knows that you've arrived safely. This means a change in action. We will wait until you get there because when you get there, we're going to do something else. We're waiting for you so we can go and do something. So that action will change when you get there. Will you be there when I arrive? This can be looked at as at the same time, but also can be looked at as shortly after. Yes? Because I arrive, you'll be there. These things will happen at the same time, but you will be there, then I will arrive. So you could say one thing happens, then the other thing happens. It's quite a fine line between the two. After I get home, I will watch TV. So this is sequence. This thing will happen after this thing happens. This thing will happen here before this thing happens. So it's all about time order. Okay. So will and other expressions, can be used in the same sentence, but they cannot be used in the same clause. So for those of you who are confused, a sentence can be broken up into 3, 4, even 5 clauses, which is unusual. But as long as those clauses are separated, we have a subject and a verb in each one, we can have commonly we could have 3 clauses in a sentence. That wouldn't be unusual. 4 or 5 would be a bit unusual, but 2 or 3 is quite common. But this is how we indicate time. We can change our clause and use a time word. So as long as you have different clauses, you can do this. Sentences which I hear and have heard in the past are things such as, when I will go home, I will do my housework. Before I will eat breakfast, I will go jogging. As you can see, the time clause in the sentences use will, which is incorrect. This is incorrect. I have some PDF documents on my website, dumagueteielts.com. Please feel free to visit the website and you can download them. They're on a Google Drive. You can download them, use them for practice. Visit the site and you'll see. So this is the end of the lesson. So please spend time understanding the usage of the material that you've just been watching. And as a final piece of advice, make sure you practice these things. So in the exam, you can use them correctly. Thank you.